For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise. And you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here, live from Houston on The Scribble Show today. Thanks for tuning in at thescribbleshow.com and on SoundCloud and iTunes. We are live. We sound a little bit different. We're remote today. We are on location. Top of the Charts and The Open Road, our syndicated radio shows, are both reporting from Houston as a tourist destination for Christmas and also Super Bowl that's coming up. And I gotta tell you, can I give you the inside scoop on this show? We're uncensored on this. It's definitely... It's a busy schedule. We've got indoor skydiving. We have a whole bunch of things. Now, we are going to be bringing you that audio. I don't know if it's this week or next week or the week after here on the podcast, but definitely if you're tuned into the syndicated radio shows, you'll hear us from Houston this week and next. So, we were here to do some Super Bowl preview as well, but unfortunately the weather just did not cooperate the weekend that we were supposed to do it. Last Saturday, there was a big community event free for people to come and experience the Super Bowl, and it just didn't happen. So we were actually going to be preparing a radio broadcast from there to air in January leading up to Super Bowl, and it got canceled, unfortunately. So we don't have that. But I can tell you that we have done some really fun things. The Houston Zoo, we've got all of the highlights at houston.jbonair.com, houston.jbonair.com, and you can click through there. We've got indoor skydiving. We've got Magic Men Live. I was backstage with the strippers. We did an interview, and we were chatting and doing some pictures, so check that out. We've also got just a whole bunch of fun from around the city. We've all been to the Nutcracker. It's so crazy. You know how you have a vacation, let's say it's 4 or 5 days, and you can do a ton of things, and then you get back to work or you get back home and people ask you how the trip was, and all of a sudden you sort of draw a blank, like, was I just there? How do I not remember what I just did across the country on vacation? And so I'm thinking, what was our first week of shows on Top of the Charts in the Open Road? What do we have on that broadcast? Well, we went to the funeral museum. That's right. Now it's jogged my memory. We went to a spa, checked out some Christmas concerts. That's the things that we've done. I'm really bombing on this. Thanks to Visit Houston for flying me out there. And I really have no idea what we did. No, it's not true. So we've got 2 weeks of programming on the radio for that. And then we'll have some of those interviews and clips right here on the podcast. Now, our friend Jann Arden, a Canadian singer, if you're familiar with music, the song Insensitive from probably about 20 years ago or so, she is in my hometown of Winnipeg tonight. This is Friday. She's in my hometown, and it's funny that we kind of crossed paths. Normally, if she was there, I'd be, okay, let me go to your concert, Jann, I'll see you there. So when she's in Winnipeg, I'm in Houston, which is quite funny. So she actually surprised me on the radio, and we're going to have that for you. We're going to talk the holidays with Jann Arden. We actually went on. This is quite funny because she called in. It should have been maybe no more than 10 minutes. So we really don't do celebrity interviews much longer than that. We ended up having Jann on for almost an hour. So every time the music set was going on, we were still talking. And so we ended up we let it roll. And so we're going to have a bunch of that audio for you today here on the podcast. So stick around for that. Jann Arden is coming up. And also our Houston highlights at houston.jbonair.com. This is one of the busiest Decembers that we've ever had for the radio shows because after Houston, we have Montreal. So we're doing 4 weeks of travel tourism programming. We've never done that before, but since we're celebrating 10 years on the air for Top of the Charts, we figured why not do 2 destinations? We actually, get this, they wanted to do 3 destinations. I barely have enough energy to do 1 because when you think about it, we're planning an entire show and then you've got the web content, you've got to get the audio, you've got to do everything, and then you kind of reset and then you do it all again the next day, because we're doing the back-to-back. After Houston, it's Montreal the next day. And there's just no time to rest. And, I'm getting old now. I'm getting old. When I was 30, on my 30th birthday, or just a couple of days after, everybody makes fun of you saying, oh, you're 30, you're an old man now, whatever. Well, the Comedy Central roast of Roseanne was happening. And I decided, we've got access to this. I can go cover it. So what I did was, on my own, I went from Canada to Los Angeles. I didn't book a hotel. I didn't do really anything. No preparation whatsoever. I took a backpack, my laptop, and then the equipment to record, like to take pictures and to record the audio. Flew there. I got dressed in the car on the way to the theater, covered the red carpet, went inside, did the event, ate, drank, filed my reports, did everything, went back to the airport in the middle of the night. I left the theater probably at about midnight. No idea where the airport was in proximity to where I was in relation to that, and just found my way back to the airport. And I fell asleep on a table at McDonald's for maybe about an hour or two until the airline ticket, the check-in counter opened, and flew back. So it was just a little bit over 24 hours. It wasn't, maybe let's say 30 hours. There we go, for my 30th birthday. And just a whirlwind trip. We did it all like in one weekend. Flew out first thing in the morning. Got there in the afternoon, covered the event, went right back to the airport, got on a flight first thing in the morning, and flew back to Canada. And it was exhausting as all hell, let me tell you. But it was one of those things, it's my 30th birthday, people are making fun of me. I still feel young. I don't feel old at all, On trips like this, though, when I'm the one who's calling it a night really early. So, we're in Houston, there's nightlife galore, right? And here I am. I'm going to check in at 9:30, guys. I'm good. You guys can go out. You can do whatever. I'm just gonna stay here. So we'll see if I survive Montreal as well. Okay. So Houston.jbonair.com. We'll be back right after this, and then we're going to jump into that Jann Arden interview right here on the Scribble.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Oh, celebrity phone blinking again. They love doing this to me. Let's go to it right now. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi, it's me, Jann Arden from Calgary, Alberta.
Oh, hey, Jann, how are you?
Oh my gosh, it's so great to be here in Winnipeg.
Oh, that's right. You're doing 2 shows in Winnipeg, right?
Yes, I am. Where are you?
Okay, here we go. This is awkward, everybody. So I'm usually in Winnipeg, and right now we're in Houston taping our Christmas show, so I'm getting a little bit of warmth. But there's a bit of snow there in Winnipeg, so here, this is what happened, Jen. I'm backpedaling now. But you have 2 sold-out concerts that I couldn't get tickets to, so I just figured I'm going to Houston.
I know somebody. I could have got you in.
Uh-oh, she foiled my plan. Oh, no. Well, all right. Okay. Lucky Texas. Maybe. Let's see if maybe, because you're in Toronto coming up as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe if you're putting the invitation out there, Jan, I'll see what I can do about Toronto. Okay.
Drinks. We can share some shortbread.
Well, I know you're an animal lover. I could have left my dogs at the house. You could have just stayed at the house with the golden retriever and the lab cross.
Sure.
Okay. You have to bring something that's fur-proof, though. They tend to shed and slobber a little bit too.
Saran wrap.
Well, yeah, thanks for calling in. I know you're going to have a great time in Winnipeg. 2 shows are happening.
I'm out on the road till, I think, the 20th of this month. So, thank heavens I have all my Christmas shopping done, and I had my tree up a week ago, just so that I didn't have to deal with it when I got home. But yeah, it's super exciting. I have to tell you, the opportunity to sing with a symphony is something that doesn't happen very often, and it's a very surreal experience.
It seems almost much more pure than having, you know, a big like rock band behind you. Not that you have, you know, heavy rock songs, but it's just, and it seems more intimate, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, oddly, you know, you see 40 musicians on stage, and it's amazing how you see everyone working together for, you know, this common goal, which is to, you know, piece this song together. It always amazes me that the composers write all these different parts for these instruments, and that it just fits together like a puzzle. And when you're standing there on the stage, it hums. Like, it really moves under your feet. There's a vibration, a very palpable physical vibration, and it's something that it really stays with you. Obviously, you can't travel with a symphony all the time, or you'd be completely broke. But you know, having this opportunity to do this is really indelible.
I know the symphony in Winnipeg, they have performed like with Cirque du Soleil and things like that, and I've wondered, how do you rehearse with them? Are they given the music and then you come in? Have you gone to Winnipeg to rehearse with them? How does it work?
Well, what will happen first of all is I'm meeting with the composer. His name's Dave Pierce, and he's the one that's written all the charts for the songs. So he and I are getting together with an orchestra in Calgary, and we're going to do something, we're going to run the charts. And it's Dave's sort of last opportunity to make sure everything is correct. So he's going to make sure that everything that's written down on their charts works. We'll make some notes on, you know, where I'm entering and exiting and if everything's flowing okay. And then what will happen, like in Winnipeg, I will sit and go through everything and before the show starts. So in a way, I'm running 2 shows in a day, because we'll go up through everything with the orchestra, and then in the evening, we do it all over again just to make sure everyone's comfortable. And I'll do the same thing in Toronto. Wow.
And so the tour, and then also I guess your LP is called A Jann Arden Christmas, and so you're performing the classics, right?
Yes. Everyone that's familiar with my Christmas record, I mean, you don't even have to have the record. You'll know every single one of these songs. Some of them are secular, some of them are non-secular, but they are traditional Christmas songs and seasonal songs, holiday songs. They're very familiar. Like I worked with the producer Bob Rock, who, you know, some people are familiar with, but he's done so much with so many different artists. And he really went out of his way to make sure that we just did a really traditional record that really felt like you've been listening to it for 25 years. And that's what I love about this record. I mean, I like contemporary Christmas music. I like the stuff that's got a modern spin on it, and, you know, you really rework the songs that you've heard for, you know, 50, 60 years. But we really stuck to tradition on this record, and I love it. And I think people have been, you know, really, really happy about that.
Do you like when people sort of kick up the energy on Christmas tunes and, you know, like do dance mixes and things like that? Or do you prefer the traditional like you're talking about?
I like a little bit of both. I mean, I love hearing new spins on Christmas music. I'm sure a lot of people have been raving about this already, but the Pentatonics,
yeah,
you know, do all this sort of a cappella stuff. You know, they kind of harken back to Manhattan Transfer. I'm really dating myself, but if you can remember what Manhattan Transfer used to do, the Swingle singers, you know, these people, these vocal groups that just did these arrangements that didn't have any instrumentation. It was all done vocally. So it's pretty mind-boggling what they do just with the human voice. But I like all of it. I'm still such a huge fan of Boney M. That's one of the records that I put on year after year after year. You know, those great kind of 70s, 80s disco-themed Christmas music. I mean, who would have thought that it would have been so popular all these years later?
Okay, so set the scene. You talk Boney M and the music that you listen to at home. So you're getting ready for Christmas, like either you're setting up the tree or you're wrapping presents. What music is playing? What movie is on? What are you drinking? What are you eating? What's happening?
What aren't I eating? I have to say this, and don't judge me, but I have a Christmas playlist that I've been compiling for years. And I have almost 1,600 songs on my Christmas playlist. And yes, there's tons of repeats, but they're all from different artists. I mean, I might hear chestnuts roasting on an open fire by 20 different artists in the course of a 4 or 5 hour evening. You know, Doris Day, Sinatra, Sarah McLachlan, Andrea Bocelli, and Michael Bublé all singing the same song. But I keep adding to it. Like last year, I added a couple of Streisand records. I added Annie Lennox. I added a Sting Christmas album that's really not traditional at all. He does all these really interesting Celtic folk Christmas songs. So, you know, I love listening to that every year. I usually get through all the songs. Like, it takes me a week to get through the entire playlist, but I'm always mind-blown by that. But, you know, I love the eggnog. I actually bought some soy eggnog, and it's pretty damn good.
Wow.
But, you know, shortbread cookies are a big hit around, you know, my place. And mincemeat, tarts, some people like them, some people hate them. But, yeah, I mean, how much chocolate and how much shortbread can you eat, really?
Well, quite a bit. Now, do you have, like, I know I love shortbreads, but I always find that there's certain family members, like, nobody can make them like my mom does. And then when it comes to, when it comes to mashed potatoes and gravy, my grandma does that the best. Like, does anybody stick out for you?
Well, my dad, he's no longer with us. He passed away a year and a half ago, but he made the best shortbread. So him and your mom would have been great pals. But he also made this stuffing that was his mother's stuffing. And I remember when she used to make it when she was alive, his mother. And but I know how to make dad's stuffing now, and it's so simple with onions and bread and sage and butter and cream. And it's just one of those things where you just never think it's going to taste good. And year after year, people are like, "Oh, I miss the stuffing so much." So I would have to say the stuffing is something that has now been passed on to me, which I love to make.
You know, coming up next year, you're being inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. That's got to be surreal, isn't it?
I don't even know how the heck my name got thrown into that list, but I'm very flattered and, you know, really blown away. And I mean, I feel like I've got, you know, a lot left in front of me, but I really am speechless. I don't know what to say, and it's a great honor, and I guess I should start thinking about a speech of some kind.
Well, let's talk about that. So you've had quite a successful, you know, few decades in the music business, and we always see these people, aspiring singers or musicians on YouTube and social media. They're trying to be seen. They're trying to, you know, either become famous or rich or whatever it is. What advice would you give somebody who really genuinely has an interest in singing or writing music? What would you tell them to try to make it in the music biz?
Gosh, you know, I think if you just really concentrate on your work and concentrate on your craft and, you know, try and sing wherever you can, you know, open mic nights and bars and clubs, and put ads in newspapers and find like-minded people and just play, you know, just play your instrument, whether it's guitar or piano. Write music, you know, even if you don't particularly fancy yourself a songwriter, I think it's an important part of the equation. You know, I think persistence is much bigger than talent. I think we see it all the time in you know, pop music now. You'll hear people that, you know, don't sound like they're particularly that good, but one thing they have this intrepid spirit, and people that want to get to where they're going, they just don't take no for an answer. So persistence sometimes outweighs everything. So I always tell people not to give up. The more you do something, the better you get at it. And if people are telling you no, that often means you're kind of on the right track. You know, to be different and to stand apart from other people sometimes is really painful. And sometimes you take a lot of grief. But, you know, it's worth it in the end to truly be an original. Sometimes you just have to, you know, tuck your shoulders in and put your head down and walk into the wind. So that's what makes art exciting. You know, that's what makes having a creative life so purposeful, is that you're making something out of nothing. And that's pretty exciting.
Let's flip it around. What would you tell them to absolutely never, ever, ever, ever do?
Step on somebody else, to admonish other people or wish that other people don't do well. I think altruism is something that's so important in a creative life. To cheer other people on, it only enhances your own work. It really does. There's room for everybody. Just because somebody else is a singer-songwriter and you feel like they're encroaching on your territory, there's room for everybody. I see that a lot. I'm not huge on competitions, vocal competitions and writing competitions. To me, art is so subjective. They all win by just trying out for these shows. It always boggles my mind that they have the courage to go do that. I don't think I would have had the courage to take that route to get somewhere in music. But, altruism, just cheer for other people.
When you first started out, though, was there anything that surprised you about the music business that you just didn't see coming or didn't even know would exist?
Gosh, I think there was a lot of things. When Insensitive really started hitting in 1994, it took us all by surprise. It was this song that a friend of mine named Anne Marie had written, and we put it on the record, and you never think anything. I knew that it was a strong song. I really loved the song, but when it started picking up through Texas and spreading across California and going across the States, and then it hopped overseas and was suddenly number one in Italy and a top 3 song in South Africa and Australia and all through the Scandinavian countries and into Asia. Like, it was bizarre. And it happened over a period of 3 or 4 months, and I was on the road for 3 years with that song all over the world. And I'll just never forget how ill prepared we were. I laugh when I look back now how different it was, and I'm always so grateful that there was no such thing as social media. I think it would have been tough. I don't think I would have been able to handle the criticisms and things like that. So I really do admire people, young people now that are out there, having these hit songs and, facing so much criticism from their peers and about their clothing and their appearance and their behavior. And, gosh, it's just such a different world. But, there's lots of changes happening. There's lots of things that are coming around the corner that we don't even know what music's going to look like 10 years from now.
There's a lot of opportunity to have a big break nowadays, but then also have the exact opposite and have, like you say, criticism and things blow up in your face. Do you have any advice to give on how to be No, you're kidding. You get it. See where I went there.
Well, yeah, I know. I probably do. I think anyone that wants to go into music, there's so much open territory. The internet is a really, really great tool. Obviously, people are breaking into music on YouTube all the time and on these contests, and social media is making stars out of people. I think the trick here and the thing to remember is it's quite easy to have a song now. It's not as unreachable as a person might have thought of it even up 6, 7, 10 years ago. But it's sustaining that. It's having a song. There was some statistic that someone threw out a while ago that I was kind of gobsmacked by it, and they say that out of the 100% of people that are signed, within 3 years, 90% of those people are already dropped off the map, and in another 2 years, you're down to like 3% of the original sort of 100 people that would have been signed. So it really is difficult thinking long term. We're not seeing artists now, I don't think, that we're going to see 20 years from now. I think they're going to be pretty quick careers. And that's the thing I think people have to keep in mind. It is constantly working. It's constantly reinventing. One song, that's not your issue. The issue is carrying on after that and maintaining a career. it is just a full-time slog, and it never gets easier.
Well, we see that with a lot of forms of entertainment. TV shows, canceled after, 3 episodes, sometimes even after 1. They just don't get that opportunity if the audience isn't there right at the beginning.
Absolutely. That's what I mean. It's just, the one song isn't the big issue. It's doable. It really is. And social media has given us that. YouTube has given us that. But the maintaining, we're losing so many iconic singers now, and it's hard seeing these people that have been at the core of our lives really the last 20, 30, 40 years. You look at people like the Stones, you look at people like, the Eurythmics, Annie Lennox, Sting, Elton John, Billy Joel. We've lost so many great people, Prince and Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson, and so many of these pop staples that were in our lives for 20, 30 years. And, you look at the sort of the geography of artists that are out there now, and you're thinking, who are our iconic artists? Who are going to be the mainstay that pick up that torch and run with it going forward? And that's troublesome to me on some levels, because I don't know if we're seeing, those kinds of strengths, that people that will be here 30 years down the road, still having those powerful careers, still affecting, young singer-songwriters and bands. And, I don't know. I look at that, maybe I don't want to be all doom and gloom. There's so many talented people out there, but I think the way the industry is set up, they don't think long-term. They're not thinking that way anymore. They're just thinking about the song, let's throw it against the wall, let's have it stick, and then where do you go after that? Do these kids get a chance at 1 or 2 more singles, or is that? So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It really will.
For who's out on the scene in the market right now, though, who's our next sort of like legend 20 years from now? Who do you see?
I don't know.
No.
I don't see it. I don't really even think in those terms. It's hard to think in those terms. I think Lady Gaga will be around. I think Stephanie is incredibly talented, and I think she will recreate and move on and morph. We're already seeing what she's done over this past decade. Mm-hmm. So there are a fistful of people, I think, that will do that. But you wonder about like Justin Bieber, all the personal stuff that kind of gets dragged along with him, and But even looking at someone like Kanye, who's been plowing along for the last 5 or 6 years. Social media makes it hard for people. There's so much pressure, and you're asking me a really impossible question. Who do you think? Who do you see out there right now that could be 30 years down the road, doing this?
That's the thing. Well, I think that society has become, it's so disposable that, we love you one day and then we don't like you the next day. So, could Beyonce keep it up? Could Britney Spears all of a sudden come back with a bunch of hits? It's really hard to say, because they also are evolving as they get older, changing their style of music. Justin turned into sort of a, the gangster kind of thug that he was for a little while, and now he seems to be rebounding and trying to be the nice guy. But again, at that point, his audience is now starting to be in their late teens, early 20s. Do they appreciate that now? I don't know. It's hard to say.
Well, you think about, just losing Leonard Cohen recently.
Yeah.
The effect that he had on writers for the last 5 decades. So not from 2011 to 2014. We're talking about a guy that for 50 years was at the pinnacle, at the very top of the food chain as far as singer-songwriters. Everyone looked at him for, when you hear his, Hallelujah or Suzanne or, countless songs, Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, these songwriters, Billy Joel, one of the best songwriters on the planet. Mm-hmm. And these guys are still going out and filling stadiums. I don't know who those people are now. It's hard to say, because like you said, Jeremy, it's not how the music industry is set up. I mean, you can watch Shawn Mendes, and here he is going into his sophomore record, and you're wondering, where is this going to go? Or The Weeknd, or things like that. But I don't see those. I don't know. Are they Billy Joel? Are they Joni Mitchell? Or are they creating a whole new way of looking at celebrity and looking at music? And I think that's how we have to look at it now. It's not what it used to be at all.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat,